before we get started, I'll quickly introduce myself. I guess I've only been using XLights since after last year's Mini. I sat through the Mini and watched Vixen and XLights. I was actually quite taken by Vixen. Went and tried to use Vixen, couldn't get past the setup, gave up on it, tried XLights, found that it was reasonably logical, then got frustrated with some of the effects and having a bit of a coding background. I went back and changed it. I think it was a snowflake effect. I wanted it to accumulate. Made a change then, made a couple of changes later in the year, and they all got accepted. And so, yeah, so since about January, I've been sort of pumping stuff out pretty quickly. Today, I wanted to spend some time going through, mainly through the layout screen and talking about this. I'm going to show you a couple of things. The version that you're looking at here is actually the next version. There's only a couple of differences, and I'll talk about those when we get to it. I'll also at some point run an even different version that's currently being developed in parallel, which is different again and works a little bit differently, particularly when it comes to the groups and everything. But let's start over on setup. So I'm not sure how many people are brand new at it, but I'm going to assume that at least one of you are and start here. Now, technically, normally with these things, and last year, if you were using XLights, you would have to come into this screen and you would have to set a whole bunch of stuff up. These days, however, most of us are running our shows off a Raspberry Pi. And what you find yourself doing is you set all your stuff up in here, then you go over to your Falcon and you have to set it all up again, and it takes forever. And at the end of the day, it's actually not that important. Unless you plan to actually run your lights off XLights when you're testing or when you're running your show, XLights actually doesn't care about your controllers. So here's what I do. I go to Add Null. I click Add Null. I add 30,000 channels. And I'm done. And I don't have to do anything more on here. It really doesn't matter. This is just allocated channels 1 to 30,000, and I can just ignore it. And I can start with my layout. So probably the best place to start here is getting a background image. So when you've got nothing on here and nothing selected, down here the property window shows you the property window for window here. Now, there's one thing that bugs me about this screen, and that is that you can't resize it at all. You can't use scroll bars, etc., to move it. So you have to fit your image inside here. To get your image inside, just click on the background image field over here. Click on that entry field. Another thing that annoys me, you have to choose the right file format. Oh, okay, it would help if I was in the right folder. And here's my hat from last year. I happen to use a photo with all my lights on because it's then easier to actually match all your models. The photo fits reasonably well. I can see all of it, so I don't need to resize it. If your model doesn't fit particularly well, you can play here with the height and the width. And, you know, you could make it narrow. Well, it was very narrow. You can make it narrower or bright, wider or whatever, but we'll go back to the default because it fits reasonably well. Obviously, you want it to fill the screen here because when you get times to start laying your models out on it, you're going to want to be able to see exactly where your models go. When it comes to that, however, this photo is a little bit bright, and so you can dim the photo down so that the background doesn't distract you. You really only need enough to be able to see enough of your house and where things are going to put stuff on. And that's it. Down here, you have the Save button. The Save button goes red whenever there is some change that has happened to the layout that needs to be saved, and you can save it at any time. So that's the basics. Now it comes time to actually start to put your models on. And your models are all up here along the bar. There's the arches model, which is great for, there's a couple of arches over here. I've actually got arches that go all the way across my driveway now, so you'd use the arches model for that. Your candy canes are great for, there's some dumb candy canes down here. That'll draw those. This is the circles model. It does circles or concentric circles. I know some people use it for wreaths and the like. There is, I do have this ball here. I could do the outline of these balls using that circles model if I liked. This is the custom model. We'll go a little bit into the custom models, but custom models let you model anything that there's not something by default here that works for you. Icicles provide you with, I actually don't have any on my house, but you know, a run of lights with the drops, etc. And those drops can be different lengths. Your matrix, which is great. I've got a big matrix sitting here under my window, so perfect for that. You can also use it. I've got these curtain lights that I hang over the front of my garage, and they're just white LEDs. You can use that to represent that as well. I know some people use the matrix to create a dummy version of a projection screen. So they might be using a projector, maybe their Pi's driving a projector and they're projecting something onto the door, and they'll use the matrix to create a virtual screen so that they can sequence it and see what it's all going to look like. The single line tool, that's great for doing these edges around the roof line. The spinner, now the spinner's new after Shane gave me a hard time last weekend about the fact that spinners were really hard to do. That got built and got finished about half an hour ago, and it seems to work okay. So that won't be in your own version, but it'll be in the next one. The star model is great for building stars like this, including multi-layer stars, so it has some ability to do that. The tree is great for both trees like this, which is a pixel tree, but also these trees here, which are some just dumb RGB type trees. It'll do both. Window frames are okay for window outlines. I must admit I haven't used them, but that's what they're for. You have wreaths, and so wreaths are really made for, oh, I don't know, you know, those, it's like a round circle. To be honest, I don't entirely understand how this is overly different to the circles, other than you seem to get multi-strings of lights within the same circle. So, yeah, I don't know, some sort of wreath for hanging on doors, I guess. And then there's the import custom. So this is actually not a model at all, but what it will do is it will import a model file that maybe you've saved from another setup, or someone has sent you a model file and you want to import it in. It's also useful for importing models that you've generated using some of the auto generation tools that we'll also spend a bit of time talking about. So let's go through and talk about how to actually put these down and how to cut and paste them and the like. The simplest thing to do is to click on them once, and you can come out here, click, hold it and drag it, and you can put it here. When you've got it level, the red line appears. If you hold the shift key, it kind of jumps to the hold, so it's a little easier to get the red line to appear. Once you're painted, if you click again, you deselect. Right, so that's painted one arch model. It's got a whole bunch of default properties down here that we'll go through in a minute, but that's basically it. You don't have to come down here and set everything up perfect. If you want to just quickly mark everything out and put everything on, and you don't have to worry about how many pixels there are or what type they are. You can just paint all the models onto the screen and then come back later and fix things up. If you double click on the icon up here, so not single click but double click it, then you can click and drag and click and drag and click and drag and click and drag and paint as many as you like in a row. But then you have to come up here and click it again to disable it. Otherwise, you'll be painting arches for the rest of your life. And that works with pretty much all of them. I'm not sure it works with import, but I think all of the others, that's just standard behavior of how these buttons work. So that's what arches look like. Candy canes. Candy canes is great for painting candy canes. You can flip them around either way. It'll also do sticks, so vertical bars of light without the hook on the end. The circles, as we said, just draws a circle. But when you play with the parameters, and we'll do this shortly, you can see that you can actually do some other things with it. Custom, when you draw it, just turns out as a black box until you get down here. Oops. Until you get down here into all the properties, etc., you won't be able to see anything. These are your icicles. As you can see, they've got various drops. Your matrix just looks like a grid. Your single line draws a single line at pretty much any angle. You can grab the end. The green is always the beginning. The blue is the end. You can grab either end and move it around. It's the same up here. Green's the beginning, blue is the end. This one up here is actually a pivot point that lets you change the angle of the arch. Many of them have that sort of control as well. This one here is a 4.1, and so it has this extra bar up here that lets you turn the circle around. Yeah, this one here, once again, you can move it sideways with your pixels, with your matrix. You can rotate your matrix, things like that. This is the new spinner control. So the spinner control lets you create a spinner with various arms with nodes or dumb pixels, etc. A star lets you create a star. It'll actually create a multi-layer star, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. A tree, by default, creates a 3D 360-degree pixel tree, but we can show you how to change that. Your window frames, running out of space, basically draws an X, and we'll come back to that as well. Sorry, draws a box. And here's your wreath, which looks surprisingly like a circle, and we'll go through that. And there's not, we can click on import. When you click on import, you can draw, you get a black box, but then you get a dialog box popping up saying, well, hang on a second, you need to tell me what you want to import. And so I can go to a folder here and import a policeman. There you go. It's a policeman that I scanned in. I'll show you how to do that later. So that's all our model types. That's what they look like. So let's go over and start with the properties. So let's go up to the top and let's look at our arches. So all of the properties of the arches are down here. Now here we've drawn multiple arches, but we've drawn them one at a time. You can just increase the number of arches here. The downside of this is obviously the arches are all joined together. By drawing them separately, you have the flexibility to put them wherever you want. But they can be a little easier to sequence sometimes when they're together, so you might want to do that. Here you get to decide how many pixels you've put on your arch. So I'll lower it to 5, and you can see there's only a handful of pixels on the arch, but you can increase that to whatever it needs to be. Because I've got 2 arches and 50 nodes per arch, there's obviously 100 arches in here. 100 arches at 3 channels, as you would expect up here, shows that it takes 300 pixels, 300 channels for those 2 arches. Lights per node, I can't even remember what that is. I'm sorry, you'll have to look the manual up. Arc degrees, so this lets you change the arc, and so this one's only 90 degrees. If you turn that a little bit on its side, it's a little bit hard to tell that here, but if you turn it on its, I can't turn it, sorry, I can turn it on its side. Turn it on its side like that. You can see that it's actually only a 90 degree of arch, not 180 degrees of arch. Right, I'm going to use this one now. Your starting location. So this says which pixel in this arch is the first pixel. So which is the pixel that is closest to your controller. In this case, it's the left, but you can, of course, change it to be the right. Now, it doesn't change the green pixel. The green pixel doesn't necessarily mean that that's the lowest numbered pixel. That's just the pixel that started when you drew the arch. And so you have to come down here and see that that's the right-hand one. Now, if you're unsure on a model, So what have we got? We've got arches-1 here. A quick way to check is to create just a dummy sequence. So we come over to the sequencer here. We'll put a timing mark in for those that I'm losing. I'm sorry. And we'll add that arch1 in. Okay, so there's our arch1. And what we will do is double click on it and it'll open up and we can see all of the nodes that are on it. And then we'll just drop an on effect onto node 1. All right, and let's put a bars effect on the overall thing. Change that to red and green. Okay. So what you can see is it's flicking between red and green, and you've got a pixel down here that's white. That must be node 1. So you know that when you're sequencing this, when you're wiring this thing up, that this is expected to be node 1. If you wanted to, so if we got that wrong, we can come back here, change this to be left, switch back to the sequencer, we click on it, and look, the white pixel's now over on the left-hand side, exactly as you would expect it to be. So you can do that with any model. If you're ever unsure exactly which pixel is node 1, the easiest thing to do is click it. Sometimes you've got to go through strands. We don't have strands here, so it jumps straight to nodes. And just drop an on effect and go and have a look and see whereabouts on the model that pixel turned on, and that'll tell you which one's the first node in your model. Okay, so let's keep going down these things. Your start channel. Now, this start channel, there's actually multiple different ways to define start channels, and this dialogue here will help you. The most common way that people have done it in the past is they've gone in and said, look, I'm going to make that channel number 100. So the 100th channel, so if your first controller has 50 channels and your second controller has 50 channels, then this is going to start on the last channel of your second controller. Okay, now in this case we've just specified a hard-coded number, but there's other ways that you can do this. So you can instead say that I'm going to actually do this based on a universe number. So I'm going to put this on universe 100 on channel 1. And it comes in this format here where you've got the universe number, a colon, and the 1. Now you don't have to open the dialogue, you can just type it straight in, but the dialogue obviously helps you do this. So yeah, so that's universe 100, pixel or channel number 1 on that controller is where that arch is going to be. Okay, now exactly where in the order is that all going to be? Well, given we over back here, we haven't actually defined any universes, that's entirely undefined at this point in time. Okay, so the other thing you can do is you can say, actually, I'm going to say that it's after the last channel in another model. So this one here, actually, we'll go back to that and say it's after arches. Okay, because we know that arches ends on 300, and so consequently we mouse over this and we can see that this one now starts on channel 301. Why does it do that? Because down here it says it should start on the arches model plus 1. And the arches model up here ends on channel 300, and so not surprisingly, arches 01 starts on 301. Okay, if I was to set it to begin, so you can see here with arches 2, it starts after arches 1. Arches 1 finishes on 450, and so it starts on 451. And so you can chain all of these models together to prior elements. And what you might do is in a universe, you might say, well, this is the first thing in the universe, so I'll put in the universing numbering. And then you'll say, for the rest of the things in that universe, I'm going to chain them together. And that way, if I move things around, they'll all follow automatically, and you don't have to keep on changing things. So I hope that's clear. Okay. Strand, oops, there we go. Let's pick something that has strands. So let's pick our matrix here. Let's try and get it off that jaunty angle back to something square. We can actually go into here and name the strands. So this tree here happens to have 16 strands, and we can go in here and say, I don't know, let's call this top. Let's call this one bottom. You can also name the nodes. And when you come over here, and we'll add in that matrix. You can see that those strands are actually shown here with their names. So if you've got something funky and you need to know it, I must admit, I've never used this. Generally speaking, I sequence most things at the model level, but you can go and name them if you so want to. Faces. Faces exist for two reasons. For something like a matrix or a tree, if you want to display a bitmap image of a face that you then want to use Papagayo to sequence, you can use the faces to get you into that. Alternatively, if you've actually got a face, you know, maybe something with just some dumb RGB, etc., or something like things, Coro faces, etc., you would go into this particular one to go and define exactly how those faces are all set up. I'm not going to go into faces today. Faces is a topic all of its own, and so we'll do that later. Dimming curves. So dimming curves allows you to correct for a given model the colors. So this lets you say, well, the colors of my matrix are, you know, a little bit too green, a little bit too blue, etc. And so you can come into here and you can adjust the various elements. Oops. How do I change which one it's to? Oh, so red up here. So yeah, so you can change the brightness of the individual colors and try to adjust it so that your particular element looks good. If you want to do some universal lowering of brightness on a particular element, so my matrix here, for instance, you know, it's only 950 bullet LEDs, but it's incredibly bright, and I run that at about 10% of power. Which also makes it a little bit more stable. There's no reason to pump out full power. It just dominates the rest of my display. And so you can come in here and adjust things at the model level. And it doesn't matter what effect you put onto the model, it will inherit this particular dimming curve. And so you don't have to run around changing the brightness of every effect that you drop on. Okay. In my display, now, look, normally I'd want to spend a great deal of time on this because it causes no end of grief for people, but this is going to disappear either in the next release or the one after. The simple thing is, if you can't find something, make sure that it's here. The only time when you would uncheck this box is if you're creating so one of the things that some people like to do is to create a second model on the same set of channels, and they drop the effect on that second model, but they don't actually show it on their display. It's actually just a shadow model which can help them generate some effects. That's the only reason you would click on this checkbox. For most people who are just doing their first show, etc., you just wouldn't do that. And a lot of the reason for even doing that is no longer valid. There are better ways to do it. So generally speaking, this should always be checked. And as I say, it will be going away in the next release. String properties. So string properties, this is where you get to tell us what sort of thing it is. So if this arch here is a dumb RGB arch, then I come into here and I say it's 3-channel RGB. And now XLights knows that, yes, it can change the color of this thing, but when it changes the color of this thing, everything changes at once to the same color. It's not pixels. By default, when you paint everything, it's pixels. So you have to come in. If you're not setting on your controllers that everything is expected, or everything is expected in RGB format, so you can adapt things here. Generally speaking, most people would do any mapping between these various color modes on their controllers. It's a lot easier. It means if you change hardware, etc., you can just set that up on your controller and not change your sequence. 4-channel RGBW is good for dumb RGB where there's an extra white pixel and uses 4-channel. Strobes is just the single color strobes. I must admit I don't know a great deal about those. and then you have single color. And when you have something that's single color, that would be if you were taking some, I don't know, some big W dumb RGB, dumb LEDs, and you've thrown them onto an arch. In fact, these down here they're not actually big W LEDs, but they are just a white LED strip, which I've since stripped down and replaced with pixels. But if I wanted to model this as dumb white, I would come down to here. I would say it's a single color. I click on the color and I would choose white. And XLights now knows that that can only ever light up white. It will light up only when all of RGB is, I can't remember if it has to be at 255, but it has to be fully, I think it has to be either fully on or at least equal. If I'd said that this was red, then it would light up only when I tried to, in the sequence, to make it red or white. So it looks at that red channel and turns it on accordingly. And depending on your controller and whether it's doing something like PWM, you can do fades and the like, or maybe you can just turn it on or off. That really depends on your lights and your controller. So that's our pixel types. Appearance. Appearance just changes how XLights draws the dots. The best example of this is, let's say you're doing a flood, draw a short straight line. It's one string, but it's only 1 pixel. So now we just get the 1 dot. And then I come down here and I make it 66. So a nice big circle. Make it a blended circle. 66 is a good number for the transparency as well. And now you get this sort of smeared effect, which is somewhat transparent, and it can be a great way to show your floods in your display, and you just sequence them like anything else as a single 3-channel model. So that's and you can make that a little bit bigger if you want to as well. But you can also change the size of pixels. Obviously, if you make them too large, it just all looks a little bit silly. For a lot of my dumb RGB stuff, to be honest, I use these single pixel models. I don't necessarily make them a big blurred circle, but just a big square. And so just so I can see when I'm turning them on. And then size and location. Now, technically, size and location, you don't really ever need to go into these because you can manipulate them all with these blue bars, etc. But, you know, if you're having trouble grabbing hold of something, it's misbehaving, if you really are not happy that, damn it, I've got that rotation slightly off and I really want it to be back at 0, you can come in here and type the numbers and get it perfect. So for those who are overly fussy, down here you can go and manually change all of the properties. Okay, so we've got about 9 minutes. So before I go on, I don't know, Ben, is there any questions?
Yeah, Bing's just asking whether you can copy and paste.
Oh, yes. Okay, let's do copy and paste. So absolutely you can copy and paste. I can come here to my candy canes. I press Control-C. I click somewhere else, press Control-V, and there it is. Okay, and I can press that as many times as I like. And I've now got a whole stack of candy canes. You can press Control-X to cut. So if I want to get rid of this arch, Control. Oh, okay. So that's cutting it. But what I've done is I've broken the chain over here, and that's why this error has appeared. It's harmless. You can fix it up later. You don't have to fix it up immediately, but it's going to happen a bit. You can also press Control-Z, and Control-Z will undo all of those things. Okay, and so I can go all the way back through all of my changes. So it's pretty safe to do things here. So yeah, Control-C to copy, Control-V to paste, Control-X to cut, and Control-Z to undo. If you're struggling to grab a model, remember up here somewhere we painted a custom model. Or actually, I'm struggling to grab these arches here. Damn it. Why won't they grab? Oh, I got them. But if you're struggling to grab something like that custom model, come down to here to the custom model in the list, click on it here, and it will select it for you. So it's not lost. You can always get it back. And, if you're struggling, if it's moved off the screen, you can always come down here and change the width and height and the location and so forth. Is there any other questions, Ben?
No, it seems to be. Anybody else got any? No dumb questions.
Yeah, no dumb questions. I know I've gone through it very quickly.
Oh, it's been great, Keith. It's been really good.
All right. So, look, we've still got 7 minutes before we have to go and find someone else to host the call. Let's go and touch on some of the models that have got some special or unique features.
Okay, we've just got one more question there, Keith. Liz is asking whether when he sequences, I can't get a playback.
Okay, when I'm in the sequence itself, if I click on the whole house model, and I go to click on what I've done for the arches, it just shows the whole house model. Have they got to be set?
So you can't see this model preview?
Nope.
You only get the
yeah, I can see that. See where you've got your arches sequence on your timing mark?
Yeah, over here, yep.
Yep. I've got a whole house program, so if I want to do a rainbow right across the whole house.
Okay, which is a model group, not an actual model, right? So notice how there is nothing here called whole house model. In an old release back in, I think before Christmas, those things existed, but they're just model groups, and we haven't done groups yet. I will show those.
Okay.
Right, we'll come to model groups up here, but that's all changing as well in the next release. And so I prefer to spend a little bit more time talking about some of the attributes on the model so people will understand how to actually change some of these things to look actually like their stars and the like. We'll come back to that.
Just another question I just got, which I think everybody needs to know too, Keith, is when they update to the next version, what's the best way for them to back up their files before they do it?
Okay, so look, the easiest thing to do is just to press F10. He says that, and then F10 doesn't do anything. Now, oh, sorry, it probably only works in the sequencer. In the sequencer, if you press F10, it pops up this message and tells you that it's going to back everything up, and it does. But you have to be in the sequencer. That's interesting. I didn't even realize that you couldn't do it here. It's in the menu here somewhere too, I think. File backup, there it is. There you go. So you can do it here, but you've got to go to the menu to do it. You can't use F10. There we go. Add F10 backup to layout window. All right.
And then do you just copy that and keep it in a Dropbox and then do your update?
So what it does, if I go into my folder, here's my demo 1 folder. It's got this backup directory, and every time I've done it, it's gone and created a new folder under there with, in this case, it's got the key bindings file, which is a pretty harmless file that just contains some keys that you can use. You can actually almost delete this thing. And your RGBFX, which has all of your models and everything in it. So this is a thing that you want to reuse from year to year. This file up here, this __x backup, is the backup of the sequence because I haven't saved it yet and I haven't given it a name. And so XLights has said, well, I'm just going to back it up as this unnamed file. And we'll talk at another time about how we get these back if we need to restore them. Okay, but at the moment, this is where everything, so this is where all your controller definitions are saved, and this is where your all of your model definitions are saved. Okay, you should always back up before you take a new release, but just pressing F10 is fine. You don't have to go and put it in a separate folder. You know, it's good practice to save it on a memory stick or send it to the cloud or something. But yeah, generally speaking, we try not to break things from prior releases. If you go back a release or two, sometimes you'll get to the new release, something will have been broken every now and then. It's usually me, screw something up and something doesn't work. And so people will go back to an old release. That's generally okay. Sometimes you might have used a new property that's only in the newer release and now that doesn't work. But generally speaking, it won't hurt anything. Sean and the guys go backwards and forwards all the time across releases. It's a common troubleshooting technique to see when it broke, so that we can track back to see exactly how we screwed it up. Okay, so we're going to talk about some of the special attributes on some of the models. So let's do them according to the order. So the arches, there's only one special property here, which is the number of arches, which we've shown you. You can make those appear as many times as you like, and you obviously have the tilt property, which is exactly the same property that you can get at here using the mouse. So that's the arches. The candy canes, by default, you get 3 of them. Of course, you can choose to just have the one. Whoa, that was interesting. No idea why it turned up that big, but okay. Oh, yes, of course I do, because of the size. So yeah, you can reduce it down and just have yourself 1 candy cane. You can flip it round because, you know, sometimes you've got to stick them in the other way, so look better. You can also turn it into a stick, which is just a vertical line of pixels. As usual, you can change the number of nodes, which is the number of pixels per cane, and so forth. Height, I don't know what height does. Oh, okay, it makes it really tall. I wonder why that's there. And the rotation, etc. So yeah, just a couple of attributes there for candy canes.
With the candy canes, Keith, got a question. With those 3 candy canes, can you split them if you wanted to?
No, what you would do, so what you would do is you would create them as a 1 candy cane, make it back to candy canes, and then having done that, you would control paste, and you would paste them all out one at a time. You just have to set your start channels, etc. for each one. You can do, however, with your candy canes, when you do have them, you can do things. Oops. So having done your candy canes, you can use the shear, and so if you're doing them up your driveway or something, you know, you can do it something like that, spread them out a little, and so forth. So that's entirely possible. But yeah, if you need them to look different, and often you will, just create them 1 at a time and put them on, and you can use copy and paste to do that, and it will automatically number them as if they follow on from one another. So it's probably exactly how you're going to set them up. So that's candy canes. Our circles model. I'll draw another one just in case. So the thing you can do with your circles model here, you can put in a series of parameters. There's 5 there. And I know that looks like a spinner, but it isn't. But basically what this does is this says, actually, these 50 pixels are actually 5 rings of 10 pixels each. Right, so, but you could also do something like a 30, 20, 10, got to add up to 50. 30, 20, oh, sorry, that's not, he says that and then totally gets it wrong. There we go. 30, 20, 10. Adds up to 60, and so now you've got 3 concentric circles. Now, these are wired as circles. So they wire around once, they wire around a second time, and then they wire around a third time. So while I could put 6 10s here and make it look like a spinner, it's not really a spinner because the pixels are all on the outside wired together, and then it goes in a layer and wires it again. And I don't know anyone who builds spinners like that. So it's not particularly useful, even though it looks like one. So that's the circles element. So
on the circle element, where's your start channel on that one, Keith?
I believe, well, he says I have no idea. But that's okay. We could use our trick, right? So go here, edit display elements, add our circle in. Circle 1 it'll be. Done that. So let's throw the bars effect on it. Okay, there's the bars effect, as you'd expect. And we'll go to, okay, we'll go to strand 1 and show you that strand 1, and we'll make that a different color. We'll make that blue. So you can see how strand 1 is actually defined as the outer ring, okay? And that's why I mean when you wired this up, you would have to wire it around the outside and then go into the next layer. Like I said, no one I know does it that way. And let's go and drop something on node 1, and we'll make that white. And there it is. As I expected, it's the bottom pixel. Okay, so what if you were using this, but you had the top pixel? Well, that's not hard. We come over here to our model, we grab this, and we spin it around. Now, the first pixel's the top pixel. All right, so that pixel up there is the top because this is now inverted by 180 degrees. So when I come up to here, you won't be able to see it. You won't be able to see it here, but if you look down here, very carefully, he says, because it's too small. And I zoom in a bit. If you look carefully, you can see, hopefully the resolution is good enough, the white pixel is the one on the top. So while this one here shows it unrotated and the white pixel's at the bottom, this one here, which is how it's going to look on your house, the white pixel's on the top. Okay. All right, let's go on. Let's do the next one. That was circles. Custom models, we'll come back at the end. Custom models are involved. Icicles. So here's the icicles. Again, you have a list of numbers here. If all of your icicles are 4 long, then just type in 4. If they are 4, then 5, then type 4, then 5. And you can see that the icicle pattern here is 4 icicles, 5 pixels, 4 pixels, 5 pixels, and so forth. And it really doesn't matter how complicated your icicles are. You just keep on getting the pattern here until it starts repeating, and it will lay the pixels out that way. So that's your icicles. Your icicles also shear. So, of course, when you hang your icicles down along the side here, no one's icicles actually hang that way. So you're going to want to shear them down so that gravity works the way it's meant to, and it'll look right. Okay, our matrix, there's no funky settings on the matrix other than you can control where the start location is. So you can decide whether your first pixel is top left, top right, bottom left, or bottom right. But that's all you can do there with that matrix. The single line, that has absolutely no funky settings at all other than which channel you start at. Okay, the spinner. So as I said, the spinner is not available yet. It'll be available in the next release. Here it is. So there's a couple of things. You can control the number of strings that you use. You can control the number of arms that you use on a particular string. So if you wire this with 1 string of lights out of your controller, then you'd have 1 string, but you might have, I don't know, 36. It's a bit excessive. I don't know, what's a good number? 12. 12 looks pretty good, and you can decide how many lights appear on each arm. So yeah, we can go to 2, kind of like circles, or something like 10. The hollow percentage is how big this gap in the middle is. So this goes anywhere from not at all up to, I think I maxed it out at 50. It's about as big as you can go, and obviously as you stretch the model it'll look bigger again. And then you can, of course, if you've got something custom in the middle, you might throw a custom model or something in the middle. In terms of the start channel, I got a bit adventure. Oh, sorry. Then there's the arc. So maybe it's not a 360, maybe it's a 180. So now it's a 180 spinner, and it's got just as many, but in less space, and you can use the rotation to make it flat because you actually display it flat, however that works. You then have your start channel. Let's go back to 360. I'll try to explain how start channels work and how it renders, or how you wire it. So there's obviously a lot of different ways you could wire up the spinner. I support a few of them. So you can start at the center and wire it clockwise around. And so what that does is it will start with this pixel here, the one at the top of the bottom arm, i.e. the center of the circle, and then it will go clockwise around. So it will go out this way, then this one, 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 and so on, clockwise around the circle, and it will end down here. Center, counterclockwise will go the other way. It will start again in the center, and it will wire it this way, around. Then you have end, and by end, what I mean is the bottom pixel here. So it'll start at the very bottom pixel here and go up towards the center, and then depending on its clockwise or anti-clockwise, it will move its way around. You also have the option to do a zigzag. So if you do a zigzag and you start, where are we? End counterclockwise. So what it's going to do is it's going to start here, come up to here, it's going to come across to here, and it's going to come out, and it's going to jump across and go back in, go across and go back out, and so forth. Right, so there are multiple different ways that you can wire up your spinner, and hopefully I've dealt with the most common ones to make your modeling easier. The stars, so here's a star. This star's got 50 pixels. Let's give it 60. The number of points, so you can say it's a 6-pointed star. What's a 3-pointed star? But it's almost a triangle, not quite. So yes, you can change the number of points on your star. You can also change and say, well, actually there's 30 pixels in the outer ring, 20 in the middle ring, and 10 in the center. And so you get a star which has those layers predefined, if that's how you're doing things. Okay, that's our star. Our tree. The main things with the trees, if you have different styles of tree, you have a flat tree, one that's just flat on the surface. A ribbon tree, I'm not entirely sure. It seems to be kind of different at the top. I don't entirely understand why. But even if you have a round tree, you can say, well, yes, it's a round tree, but I'm only doing it 270 degrees round because people can't see the back of the tree and it's a waste of pixels. So you can model it such that the back of the tree is not actually there. Rotation, he says. I have no idea what rotation does. I imagine that rotates it and changes the start channel or something. I'm sorry, I have no idea what that does. Someone's going to have to check the manual. Spiral wraps. Spiral wraps let you actually wrap your tree. So if you're doing spiral trees, let's say you've got some, what do I call it, tomato cage trees. Right. So what we can do is we can create a 1-string tree, wrap it around, I don't know, 3 times. And there we've got your cage tree, etc., that you can then use in your display. But you can do that with your pixel trees as well, and you can create, once you get up to high numbers of rotations, it just all looks very busy, but you can see by using a very small amount of wrap what that's actually doing. The bottom to top ratio, look, if I set it to 1, it turns into a cylinder, as you would expect. As I go up, it starts to come in. So you can decide just how pointy your tree is, I guess, is the way of looking at it. And perspective, I have no idea what that does either. Oh yeah, it curls the back up, so it's almost like the tree's tilted towards you. For someone who must be extremely fussy about how their tree looks on their display. But you can play with that. And then you've got the usual number of strings and number of lights. The strands per string is where you can do folds. So if you wire the tree up by going up once and then back once, then that would be 2 strands per string. Okay, and you can see that's effectively doubled the number of pixels in the tree. So maybe I need to reduce that back down to 8. And it looks like it does. So if you've started here, gone up, come back down, that means you've got 2 strands per string. If you go up a third one, then you would obviously change that to be a 3. So hopefully that's clear. Window frames, okay. So here, obviously, window frames are rarely square. So you get to choose the number at the top, the number at the bottom, etc. If you're doing a doorway, obviously, people rarely put lights across the bottom, so you can set that to 0. It does assume that left and right is the same. So you can't have a window that's just one-sided. You do get to control where the starting location is as well. If you've got a window which has got a sash across the middle, you obviously will need to draw that as a separate single line type element. Then we've got our wreath. This was a wreath. Yeah, this is our wreath. So here, if I increase that to 2, you can see that it didn't create an extra layer like our circles did up here. It just increased the number of bulbs, and that's because it's like you've added an additional string of dumb lights or something, is I believe how that works. Again, you've got the ability to say where the start channel is, so the bottom or the top, and whether you go around clockwise or anti-clockwise. And the import we've already touched on. There's no real, the import, to be honest, actually just imports something as a custom model. So there's no difference in the properties to custom. So that's the properties. So before I go on, I'm going to talk next about, I think I'll touch on groups briefly. And then I'll go and cover off the custom model. But is there any questions before I move on?
No, it seems to be all good so far. The only one that Oz has had was just having the spiral wrap in one colour, but he's just got to get into string properties to change that, doesn't he?
That's right. So you'll come down here and you'll say, well, actually, that's just a single colour. It's a red, or maybe it's a green. I'll go to green just for the hell of it. Let's make it green. Okay. And so now that would be, if you wrap that tree now with some dumb green pixels, that's how you'd model it. It'll come up. You'll see here that it starts on channel 511 and it finishes on 511 because it's a single channel. It's either on or it's off. All right, so let's go and, that's the problem with double clicking. Once you've double clicked, every time you touch, you get another one. That's okay. Let's go and create some arches. All right, so now you may want to sequence those as a group. So even though you've drawn them all as individual elements, you might want to go and sequence them as a group. And so what you're going to want to do is put them into a group. So you come up here to the model group area and you right click and click add group, and I can create a group called arches. Please make sure that your names of your groups do not match any of your model names. There have been problems in the past. I think they're largely hangovers from old versions, but it does cause grief. We then just go and add our arches in, and now we've got up here an arches group. We can remove things out and so forth. But that's a single group. And when we get over to the sequencer now, guess what? XLights crashed. Okay, look at that later. Fortunately, I just saved things. I bet that was because I deleted a whole bunch of models that I was working on. Okay, there's my layout, which is fine. Let's edit the stay elements. And you can see here are my 4 arches, but I've also got this extra model called arches. And when I add him in and I drop something on it, you can see that I get my 4 arches as they were painted on the screen showing up as an individual model. So I can sequence on that thing as a group now, just like I could in the past, but I can also sequence on the individual arches as well. So you can create groups. You cannot create groups of groups. That's an active point of discussion right now that hasn't been resolved. But yeah, that's coming. Now, the way this thing works up here can get a little bit confusing. This is all probably going to change in the next release. If you click on this thing up here, you can just see the arches. All the other elements, my policeman, have gone away. You can't see him, and that's because I've clicked on the arches. If I click on my display as well, both of these are selected, and now the policeman appears, but he's in pink. Why is he in pink? Because he's not in the arches group. If I unselect arches, it goes back to how it was. Look, it gets a little bit confusing. All models just shows all models as you would expect it to. But you can create as many groups as you like. You can also create the mythical, the whole house group. The downside of creating the whole house group is every time you add a model, don't forget you've got to go and put them all back in there so that when you do it, it shows everything. You can also select multiple here. So here I've selected the arches in the whole house. It doesn't matter that whole house and arches contain the same model. It works as you would expect it to. So that's kind of how groups work at the moment. To get away from the properties, to get back to the model properties, just click on the model. So when you click on a group name, the group add remove sits here. When you click on an individual model, it goes back to the model properties. There are a couple of attributes on this that are worthwhile seeing. There are a bunch of layout modes here. And this really, this is going to be a little bit difficult. It's probably like a whiteboard to explain things. Behind the scenes, XLights treats pretty much everything as a matrix. So if you look at this policeman over here, XLights has drawn a matrix, a square around it, and mapped each of these bulbs into a pixel on the matrix. And then when we put an effect over the top of it, it's kind of like we've punched holes in cardboards and we can see whatever's behind it, only where the pixels are. But there are more than one way to actually map a model. And some of the others here are, grid as per preview, which means that the gaps that sit between things are I think, respected. Minimal grid is usually the default, which is tries to make the grid as small as possible. There's a whole bunch of them here. You can play with them. The easier place to play with them is here. And the bars effect is actually a good effect for seeing this. So here's the bars effect going to the right in 3 colors. And if you look at this, notice how the bars effect as it moves across the model. I'm hoping you guys can see this. Maybe I'll make it bigger. Make the pixels nice and big. Hopefully you can see it. It runs a little bit faster at the top than it does. Sorry, it runs a little bit faster as it goes down the side. And that's because it's like it's actually just swiping across this thing as it sets. And all of these pixels are almost in the same X-plane. And so as the swipe comes across, it swipes really quickly. But up here, you could change it to those same the same things that you were seeing on the layout screen here. In the default layout mode, all of these layout modes also appear over in the sequencer where you can change them on a per effect type basis. And so here, if I was to change this to a single line, what you'll see is notice how the speed of the bars effect doesn't accelerate when it gets towards the end of the arch. And that's because XLights is now rendering this thing as if it was, instead of looking like this, it was actually a long straight line of pixels, and it's drawing the effect over that. And so, yeah, this gives you, playing with this render style, I generally speaking, to be honest, would not spend a great deal of time changing this over here. It will probably confuse you more than anything. But sometimes when you're trying to get a particular effect, so if, actually, let me give you a really good example of this. Let's go here and let's create a star. So here's a star. We'll make him 60 pixels. We'll leave him as 5 points. We'll make him a 30, 20, and 10. Okay. What have I done wrong? I said 10. I can tell it's wrong. Notice how there's this extra pixel in the bottom left. That tells me that this thing here didn't add up to the right number of pixels. Now it does, and that pixel's gone. So my star's good. So now I'm going to go back to the sequencer. I'm going to add my star. Edit my display elements, go add star. There's my star. Okay, so let's try adding some effects. So let's add bars onto my star. Okay, let's say we go with the default mode. All right. And so you can see that the bars effect is going across. There's a vertical bar of white that slides across and a vertical bar of red that slides across. And the actual structure of the star itself is not respected in any way at all. Now, if I change this to single line, and actually, I'm going to do, let me change this one more time. Let me go and put a morph on it. So morph will probably show it better. Okay, so there's a morph. Starts at the bottom, goes up, and then changes color. Comes to the bottom, swipes up. Let's change this now to a single line and you see what will happen. So now, when the morph triggers, the whole star's lighting up. Oh, that's because it's up. Sorry. This is my fault. Let's do this left to right. Full sweep right. Okay, so now you can see that it's instead of swiping up or right to left, it started at the first pixel, and which happens to be this one here, and it's gone around the outside, then it's gone around the star on the inside, and then around the star on the absolute inside. So the model hasn't changed. The way the model's wired hasn't been changed, but the way that XLights created the underlying buffer to put the effect on is different because it's now single line. If you do a layer star, okay, I wasn't expecting it to do that. I was expecting it to do slightly different. Okay, it's just swiping across. So that's exactly like a default. And per preview is absolutely takes it literally in terms of how it's looking. So many of these are actually producing exactly the same result. But that's what that that parameter there does for the group. Allows you to change that. And the maximum grid size is the maximum size that it will create underlying it. The bigger the grid gets, the slower the program gets and the more memory that it uses. Generally speaking, again, I haven't really played with this at all. I've done my old house and I've never seen a reason to play with these. I have occasionally seen a reason to play with this render style to get a particular effect that I was interested in. So hopefully that's okay. What I quickly want to do is, we're down under 10 minutes, so I'll probably go one more session after this, but I quickly want to show you what Gil's been working on. So again, this may be in the next release or the release after. I suspect it'll be the next release. Gil's been working on primarily on creating multiple previews. So instead of just having this preview, let's imagine I was doing the neighbor's house next door and I wanted to have a separate image with a separate set of models, but I wanted to be able to sequence them all together. That capability is coming. So you can see my spinner model's gone. That's because we're on a different source branch. He doesn't have my code and I don't have his code in my branch. And you've got this additional drop down up here that lets you create a new preview. Now, I'm not going to play with that. I'll let Gil show all of that. But I do want to show it because over here, you'll notice that this has changed slightly. There's the two default groups that we had in the other version, the all models and my display, they've now gone. You'll also notice that part of my display is no longer a property down here. So those things are going. So this is truly just a list of the groups. If you want to get to those other attributes like all models and my display, you now get to those up here through the preview. So that's going to change slightly. But that's next release, not in the releases you've currently got. It does simplify things a little bit. Gil's trying to be very careful to keep this approachable. We don't want it to be complicated. Most people have just one preview, one house that they're sequencing, one perspective. And so we want to make it as simple as possible for those people. But every now and then we'll run into someone who's got a really wide front yard or is sitting on a corner block or does their neighbour's place as well, and they want to be able to sequence it. So that's coming. So just another thing that occurred to me, when you take your photo of your house, take the photo of the house from where people are going to be looking at your lights. Because at the end of the day, you're going to be laying all of your models onto your house. And when you do an effect that paints across the whole house, it does a bars across the whole house, it's only going to look perfect from wherever the photo was taken. So pick the place where most people are, the best, where you want people to be able to stand and see it. And that'll be the sweet spot. Get the line marking paint out, put a dot on the road or whatever, because that's the place where you want to take the photo of your house when you've got it all going.